The question Marcus Sinclair despised hospitals. As CEO of Nexus Technologies, hospitals represented everything his sleek, efficient company was not: chaotic, inefficient, and filled with emotions he had no time for. Yet here he was, confined to a private room at Westlake Medical Center, after his executive team insisted he seek treatment for what turned out to be severe pneumonia. "Mr. Sinclair, you need to rest," his personal physician had said. "Your immune system is compromised from overwork." Marcus scoffed at the memory. 45 years old and worth $12 billion, he had built Nexus from nothing into a tech empire that revolutionized artificial intelligence. He didn't have time for rest. It was nearly midnight when he noticed her. A woman in her 30s quietly mopping the floor outside his room, her movements methodical and careful not to disturb any patients. Unlike the nurses who recognized him and offered obsequious smiles, she seemed completely unaware of his identity. When she entered his room to empty the trash, Marcus observed her more closely. Her name tag read Daniela Morales. There was something in her demeanor, a quiet dignity despite the menial work, that caught his attention. "It's late for cleaning staff, isn't it?" he asked, his voice still raspy. She startled slightly. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't realize you were awake. I can come back later." "No, it's fine. I'm not sleeping anyway." He gestured to the chair near his bed. "Take a break if you want." Daniela hesitated, clearly surprised by the invitation. "I shouldn't. There are 3 more rooms I need to finish." Marcus found himself curious, a feeling he rarely experienced with people anymore. "Double shift?" She nodded. "I work 2 jobs. Why?" The question came out more bluntly than he intended. Instead of being offended, Daniela shrugged. "Life is expensive. My father needs specialized care and my sister is in college." Marcus had heard countless pitches from people wanting his money. Each person who discovered his wealth inevitably wanted something. He decided to cut to the chase. "If you could have anything in the world, anything at all, what would you want most?" he asked, expecting the usual answers. Money, a house, a business opportunity. Daniela paused her work and considered the question with unexpected seriousness. "A research grant," she finally said. "A what?" Marcus sat up straighter, wincing at the pain in his chest. "A research grant," she repeated, "for pancreatic cancer studies. The kind my father has. The survival rates haven't improved much in decades because there's not enough research funding compared to other cancers." Marcus stared at her, genuinely taken aback. "Not something for yourself?" Daniela smiled faintly. "That would be for me. Every day I watch him fight, and every day I clean the oncology ward where so many lose the same battle." She resumed her work. "But that's just a fantasy answer to a fantasy question, isn't it? In real life, I'll just keep working my shifts and hoping the current treatments buy him more time." For the first time in years, Marcus Sinclair found himself speechless. He had expected greed, opportunism, or at least some personal desire. Instead, this woman who worked through the night cleaning hospital rooms wanted to help others facing the same struggle as her father. As Daniela finished her tasks and quietly left the room, Marcus couldn't shake the encounter from his mind. In a world where everyone wanted something from him, investors, board members, romantic interests, even family, here was someone who, when offered a hypothetical anything, chose compassion over self-interest. Reaching for his phone, he sent a message to his chief of staff. "Find out everything you can about pancreatic cancer research funding gaps in the custodial staff member named Daniela Morales at Westlake Medical." Marcus stared at the ceiling, his mind racing despite his exhaustion. He had built his fortune by seeing opportunities others missed, and something told him that in this chance midnight conversation, he might have stumbled upon his most important opportunity yet, not for business, but for something he couldn't quite name. The decision. 3 weeks after his hospital discharge, Marcus sat in his penthouse office overlooking the city skyline, reviewing the file his chief of staff had compiled on Daniela Morales. The details painted a picture that both impressed and troubled him. 34 years old, single, supporting her father Ricardo Morales, 62, stage 3 pancreatic cancer, and helping with tuition for her sister Luciana, 20, nursing student. Working 70-plus hours weekly between Westlake Medical and a weekend job at a local coffee shop. Former biology student who dropped out in her third year when her father was first diagnosed. Perfect employee record at both jobs. Sir, the board meeting starts in 15 minutes, his assistant Julian reminded him through the intercom. Marcus closed the file. The Pancreatic Cancer Research Foundation information? All prepared in the second folder as requested. The Cancer Research Alliance had confirmed what Daniela said. Pancreatic cancer received disproportionately less funding despite its high mortality rate. Their most promising research program faced a funding shortfall of $3 million, a trivial sum for him. A life-changing amount for researchers, and potentially patients like Ricardo Morales. Daniela rubbed her lower back as she finished mopping the hospital corridor. Her father had had a difficult night with increasing pain that the medications barely touched. Dr. Wilson had suggested they might need to adjust his treatment plan, which only heightened her anxiety about the mounting medical bills. Her phone vibrated with a text from Luciana. Dad's insurance denied the new medication. They're saying it's experimental. I'm on hold with them now. Daniela closed her eyes, leaning against her mop. Another battle to fight, another appeal to file, another payment to somehow find money for. Miss Morales? A voice interrupted her thoughts. She turned to see Dr. Wilson approaching with an unfamiliar woman in a tailored suit. This is Patricia Henderson from the hospital's financial services office, he said, his expression unusually bright. The woman extended her hand. Ms. Morales, I need to inform you about a change to your father's account. An anonymous donor has established a fund specifically for advanced pancreatic cancer patients at Westlake, and your father qualifies for complete coverage, including experimental treatments. Daniela stared at them in disbelief. There must be some mistake. No mistake, Dr. Wilson assured her. The donor specified that employees' family members receive priority. You're actually the first beneficiary. But who would? Daniela began, then stopped as a memory flashed in her mind. The late-night conversation with the impatient patient in the VIP suite. The strange question about what she wanted most. The donor requested anonymity, Patricia said, handing her paperwork. All that matters is that your father can now receive any treatment he needs without financial constraints. That evening, Marcus reviewed the quarterly projections for Nexus Technologies' new AI healthcare initiative. The numbers were impressive, but he found himself distracted, checking his phone repeatedly. Finally, his chief of staff called. It's done, sir. The donation to the Cancer Research Alliance has been processed, and the separate patient fund at Westlake has been established with Ricardo Morales as the first recipient. Good. And the anonymity agreements, ironclad. The hospital administrators don't know the source of the funds. Marcus nodded to himself. And the research grant recipient announcement? The Alliance will announce Dr. Prisha Patel as the recipient of the Nexus Foundation grant next week. Her team's work on early detection methods is the most promising in the field. Make sure they understand that the grant must be publicized broadly. I want everyone working in that hospital to know about this research breakthrough. After ending the call, Marcus walked to his floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the glittering city below. For 20 years he had pursued wealth and power with single-minded determination, crushing competitors and demanding perfection from everyone in his orbit. His board called him brilliant but ruthless. The business press nicknamed him the algorithm for his emotionless approach to decision-making. Yet here he was, arranging anonymous donations and patient funds because of a midnight conversation with a hospital custodian. It was irrational, emotional, everything he prided himself on not being. His phone lit up with a news alert. Nexus Technologies acquires rival quantum sphere in Hostel. Takeover. The move would eliminate 3,000 jobs but add 20 points to Nexus stock. Marcus had approved the acquisition months ago without a second thought. Now for the first time he found himself wondering about the people behind those numbers. People like Daniela, working multiple jobs, caring for family, harboring dreams they had sacrificed. He picked up his phone and called his CFO. The quantum sphere acquisition. How many of their employees could we reasonably retain in a restructuring that preserves their core innovation team? Sir? The confusion in his CFO's voice was evident. That wasn't the plan we agreed to, I'm aware. I'm asking you to create a new plan. After ending the call, Marcus returned to his desk and reopened Daniela's file, studying her face in the employee ID photo. There was something compelling about her determination, her selflessness. He wanted to understand it, to understand her. Before he could reconsider, he sent a message to his assistant. Schedule a surprise inspection of Westlake Medical Center for tomorrow evening. Make sure it's during Daniela Morales' shift. The connection. Daniela couldn't believe the changes in her father's condition after just 2 weeks on the new treatment regimen. His energy had improved, his pain had decreased, and for the first time since his diagnosis, Dr. Wilson used the word responding during their consultation. The experimental immunotherapy combined with the targeted radiation is showing remarkable results, he explained, reviewing Ricardo's latest scans. I don't want to create false hope, but these are the kind of improvements we rarely see with standard treatments. Ricardo, sitting up in his hospital bed, squeezed Daniela's hand. It's because of you, mija. Always fighting for me. Daniela smiled but felt a twinge of guilt. She hadn't fought for this. It had appeared mysteriously, like an answer to prayers she'd stopped believing would be heard. She still couldn't shake the suspicion about who might be behind it. As she walked through the hospital corridors that evening to begin her shift, she noticed unusual activity: administrators in formal attire, floors being hastily polished, and nurses reviewing protocols. What's happening? She asked Teresa, another custodian. Surprise inspection from some VIP, Teresa whispered. Everyone's panicking. Daniela had just started cleaning the East Wing when she turned a corner and nearly collided with a group of administrators accompanying a tall, imposing man in an expensive suit. She immediately recognized him, the patient from room 718, now fully recovered and exuding authority. Mr. Sinclair, this is our oncology ward, the hospital director was saying. We've implemented the new patient comfort protocols you inquired about. Marcus Sinclair's eyes met Daniela's, and a flicker of recognition passed between them before she quickly looked away and continued mopping. Excuse me, his deep voice called out. Ms. Morales, isn't it? Daniela stopped, surprised he remembered her name. Yes, sir. I'd like Ms. Morales to show me around this section, he announced to the startled administrators. She'll provide a more authentic perspective. The hospital director looked confused but nodded quickly. Of course, Mr. Sinclair, whatever you prefer. When they were alone, Daniela straightened her uniform self-consciously. I'm not sure I'm qualified to give it to her, sir. You're exactly qualified, Marcus replied. And please call me Marcus. How's your father doing? The direct question caught her off guard. My father? Ricardo Morales, stage 3 pancreatic cancer. Recently started on the Westlake experimental treatment program. Daniela's suspicions solidified into certainty. It was you, she said quietly. The anonymous donor. Marcus neither confirmed nor denied it. You didn't answer my question. Something in his tone, not demanding but genuinely interested, made her respond honestly. He's doing better than we dared hope. The new treatments. She paused, emotion catching in her throat. They're giving us time we didn't think we'd have. Marcus nodded, satisfaction briefly crossing his normally impassive features. Good. Now show me what really happens in this hospital after the administrators go home. Over the next hour, Daniela gave Marcus a tour unlike any he'd received before. She showed him the small staff room where nurses napped during grueling shifts, the closet where maintenance stored broken equipment waiting for parts, and the patient rooms where family members slept in uncomfortable chairs for weeks on end. The night shift brings food for Mr. Jenkins, she explained, pointing to an elderly man sleeping alone. His family lives 3 hours away and can only visit on weekends. The cafeteria staff save meals even though it's against protocol. Marcus observed everything with intense focus, occasionally making notes on his phone. Why do you stay here? He finally asked as they reached the end of the ward. With your intelligence and work ethic, you could find better paying jobs. Daniela considered the question. This place has a soul. Despite the bureaucracy and the shortages, people here care. They remember that patients are people first. She gestured toward the rooms they had passed. Each room holds someone's entire world, their fears, hopes, love. Being part of that matters, even if I'm just keeping their environment clean. Marcus was silent for a moment. I've built a company worth billions without ever thinking about work that way. Different worlds, Daniela shrugged, then realized how that might sound. I'm sorry, I didn't mean— No, you're right, Marcus interrupted. Completely different worlds. That's why I need your perspective. My perspective on what? I'm establishing a new healthcare initiative through my foundation. I want to improve conditions for patients and staff in hospitals like this, but my executives just see statistics and efficiency metrics. He hesitated, then continued. Would you consider consulting on the project? Your insights would be valuable. Daniela stared at him in disbelief. I'm a custodian. You're someone who understands what matters in healthcare better than most of my highly paid advisors. He handed her a business card. 2 hours a week at your convenience. I'll pay you consultant rates. Before she could respond, his phone rang. With an apologetic nod, he answered it and was immediately absorbed in an urgent business matter, his voice shifting back to the clipped, authoritative tone she'd heard him use with the administrators. Watching him transform, Daniela realized Marcus Sinclair was more complex than his public image suggested. Behind the ruthless businessman was someone capable of listening, observing, and perhaps even caring. As he ended his call and prepared to rejoin the official tour, he turned to her. Think about my offer. No pressure, no obligations. Why me? Daniela asked, needing to understand. Marcus considered her question with unexpected seriousness. Because you answered a hypothetical question with something that wasn't hypothetical at all. It was real. As real as the people in these rooms. He gestured to the ward around them. I need that reality in my world. As he walked away, Daniela looked down at the business card in her hand. Embossed in silver against black, it simply read, Marcus Sinclair, CEO, Nexus Technologies, with a private number handwritten on the back. Different worlds indeed. Yet somehow they had momentarily connected across that divide, and Daniela wasn't entirely sure what to make of the bridge being offered between them. The revelation. The Nexus Technologies headquarters resembled a massive crystal rising from the city center. 70 floors of gleaming glass and steel that seemed to touch the clouds. Daniela smoothed her newly purchased blazer as the private elevator whisked her to the executive floor for her 6th consulting session. Ms. Morales, welcome back. Julian greeted her as the doors opened. Marcus's chief of staff had initially regarded her with skepticism, but over the past month, his demeanor had warmed considerably. Mr. Sinclair is finishing a video conference. He asked if you wouldn't mind waiting in the project room. The team has some questions about your hospital workflow suggestions. The project room was larger than her entire apartment, with wall-to-wall screens displaying data visualizations and prototype designs for the healthcare initiative. A team of designers and analysts looked up as she entered. Daniela, perfect timing, said Rebecca, the project lead. We've been implementing your recommendations about family accommodation spaces. The architects have 3 concepts based on your insights. It still felt surreal, these brilliant, accomplished professionals treating her ideas with such respect. When she'd first agreed to Marcus's proposal, Daniela had expected to be a token presence, her contributions politely noted and promptly ignored. Instead, she'd discovered that her practical knowledge of hospital operations filled critical gaps in their understanding. As the team discussed the designs, Daniela's phone vibrated with a text from Luciana. Dad's latest scan came back. Dr. Wilson wants to meet tomorrow to discuss. Says it's important. Anxiety immediately tightened her chest. Important could mean anything. Daniela. Rebecca's voice broke through her worry. Are you okay? Yes, sorry. Family matter. She refocused on the meeting, but her mind kept returning to her father. An hour later, as the team dispersed, Marcus appeared in the doorway. Unlike his usual impeccably tailored suits, he wore a casual black sweater and looked slightly disheveled, as if he'd been running his hands through his hair. Sorry about that. Tokyo venture capitalists have no respect for time zones. His eyes narrowed slightly as he studied her face. Something's wrong, it wasn't a question. Daniela had noticed this about him, an uncanny ability to read people despite his reputation for coldness. My father has a follow-up appointment tomorrow. I'm just concerned about the results. Marcus nodded. Take the day off. I'll have my driver take you to the hospital. That's not necessary. It is, he interrupted, then softened his tone. Please, let me help. Something in his expression made her accept the offer with a simple, thank you. Marcus gestured toward his office. I have something to show you before you leave today. His private office was surprisingly minimal, a stark contrast to the opulence displayed throughout the rest of the building. The only personal touch was a small framed photograph of a woman Daniela didn't recognize. Marcus activated a wall screen displaying the Westlake Medical Center logo alongside the Nexus Foundation emblem. The board approved the pilot program this morning. Westlake will be the first hospital to implement the staff support and patient care initiatives you helped design. Daniela's eyes widened. Already? But I thought the timeline was at least 6 months out. I accelerated it. He moved to his desk and pulled up another document. There's something else. The Cancer Research Alliance announced a breakthrough in early detection. Technology for pancreatic cancer. Dr. Patel's team, the ones who received that research, grant they've developed a screening method that could increase survival rates by up to 60% through early intervention. Daniela stared at the announcement, a surge of hope rising within her. This could save thousands of lives. It already is. Marcus hesitated, then added, including potentially more people like your father. The way he phrased it struck Daniela oddly. She looked up to find him watching her with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. Marcus, can I ask you something directly? He nodded. Why did you really approach me that night in the hospital? Was it because you planned all this from the beginning? The grant, the foundation work, my father's treatment. Was it all some elaborate project for you? His expression shifted. A flash of something like hurt crossing his features before his composure returned. Is that what you think? That this is some billionaire's charity hobby? I don't know what to think, Daniela admitted. One minute I'm mopping floors and the next I'm designing healthcare initiatives with top executives. My father goes from being denied coverage to receiving cutting-edge treatment. It doesn't make sense unless there's an agenda. Marcus finished for her. He walked to the window, looking out at the city below. When I asked you that question in my hospital room, I expected a selfish answer because that's all I've heard my entire life. People want things from me, money, power, connections. No one has ever surprised me the way you did. He turned back to face her. Do you want to know what started all this? Insomnia and pneumonia put me in a hospital bed where, for the first time in decades, I couldn't escape into work. And then you walked in. Someone who had every reason to be bitter about life's unfairness but instead maintained this dignity and compassion I couldn't comprehend. Daniela remained silent, watching the usually controlled CEO speak with uncharacteristic emotion. I didn't plan any of this, he continued. I acted on instinct, funding the research because it mattered to you. Then I wanted to understand why it mattered so much, which led to the hospital visit. And then I realized my company had resources that could actually make a difference. But I needed someone who understood the real problems, not just the business metrics. He stopped abruptly, as if suddenly aware of how much he had revealed. I apologize if my approach seemed manipulative. That wasn't my intention. Daniela processed his words carefully. So this isn't about charity or guilt? No. His answer came without hesitation. It's about value. Recognizing value in places I've been trained to overlook. Your perspective, your experience, your humanity. They're valuable to this project, to Nexus, and he paused, seeming to search for the right words, and to me. The admission hung in the air between them, neither professional nor entirely personal, an acknowledgement that something had shifted in their unusual relationship. Daniela finally broke the silence. I should go. Early day tomorrow. Of course. Marcus returned to his professional demeanor, though something in his eyes remained different. The car will be at your apartment at 8 a.m. As Daniela gathered her things to leave, she paused at the door. For what it's worth, I believe you. And I'm grateful, not just for my father, but for taking my ideas seriously. Not many people would have done either. Marcus nodded, a subtle smile touching his lips. Not many people would have answered my question the way you did. As the elevator descended, Daniela reflected on their conversation. Whatever had begun that night in the hospital room had evolved into something neither of them could have anticipated. A connection between worlds that should never have intersected, yet somehow did. And tomorrow, whatever news awaited at her father's appointment, she would face it with resources and possibilities that once seemed impossible, all because a billionaire with pneumonia couldn't sleep and asked her a simple question: the transformation. A light snow fell over the city as Marcus stood at his office window, watching the winter sunset paint the skyline in gold and pink. 6 months had passed since his conversation with Daniela in this same room. 6 months that had fundamentally altered the trajectory of Nexus Technologies and his own life. His phone chimed with a calendar alert. Ricardo Morales, final treatment session 5:30 p.m. Marcus smiled at the notification. After a year of experimental treatments, Ricardo's cancer had responded remarkably. Last month's scans showed no detectable disease, though his doctors maintained cautious optimism, emphasizing the need for continued monitoring. The intercom buzzed. "Sir, the board members are assembled in the conference room," Julian announced. "On my way." As Marcus gathered his materials, he glanced at the framed photo now sitting prominently on his desk. Not the old one of his mother, but a new addition. Himself alongside Daniela and her family at the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Westlake Medical Center's new family support wing, the first completed project of the Nexus Healthcare Initiative. In the expansive boardroom, 12 executives sat around a polished table, their expressions ranging from curiosity to thinly veiled hostility. The quarterly meeting had been contentious, with several board members openly questioning Marcus's recent strategic decisions. "Before we conclude," Marcus began, "I want to address the concerns some of you have raised about our company's new direction." Frederick Winters, the longest-serving board member, leaned forward. "It's not just a new direction, Marcus. It's a fundamental restructuring of our business model that's cost us short-term profits and alienated certain investors." Marcus nodded, acknowledging the criticism without defensiveness. "The numbers you're all most concerned about." He gestured to the screen behind him where quarterly figures appeared. "Revenue is down 7% compared to our projected growth. Stock price has fluctuated but stabilized at 12% below last year's peak." Murmurs circulated around the table. "However," Marcus continued, "employee retention is up 38%. Our healthcare initiatives have generated partnerships with 17 medical institutions, and our ethical AI development protocols have positioned us to secure government contracts worth billions over the next decade, contracts our competitors can't touch because they don't meet the new regulatory standards." He switched to the next slide. "Most importantly, our long-term sustainability metrics show that this approach will yield 23% greater profitability over 5 years compared to our previous model." The room fell silent as the executives studied the projections. "What I've learned," Marcus said quietly, "is that success measured solely in quarterly profits is both short-sighted and ultimately self-defeating. Real value, sustainable value, comes from creating systems where everyone benefits. Our employees, our partners, our communities, and yes, our shareholders." Frederick's expression remained skeptical. "And this epiphany came from your hospital custodian consultant?" Several board members smirked at the description, but Marcus didn't rise to the bait. "This understanding came from recognizing what I'd been missing. For years I built algorithms designed to maximize efficiency and profit, without considering the human elements involved." He paused, meeting each board member's gaze in turn. "That approach made us successful in the short term, but created vulnerabilities we're only now beginning to address." By the meeting's end, the board had reluctantly approved Marcus's proposed expansion of the healthcare initiative, though several members made their reservations clear. As they filed out, Rebecca, the project director, approached him. "Daniela's waiting in your office," she said quietly. "She seems upset." Marcus found Daniela pacing near his desk, her usual composure replaced by visible anxiety. "What happened?" he asked immediately. "Is it your father?" She shook her head. "Dad's fine, better than fine, actually. His doctor says if the next 3 months show the same results, they'll officially use the word remission." Relief washed over Marcus. "That's wonderful news." "It is," Daniela agreed, finally standing still. "But that's not why I'm here. I just came from a meeting with the hospital administration. They're implementing budget cuts and the custodial staff is first on the chopping block. Half the team will be let go next month." Marcus frowned. "That wasn't part of our agreement with Westlake." Apparently, the new CFO found a loophole. "The support staff aren't considered essential healthcare workers under the contract terms." Her voice cracked slightly. "These are people with families, Marcus. People who've worked there for decades." Without hesitation, Marcus reached for his phone. "Give me their names. All of them." "What are you going to do?" "Fix it." He was already dialing. "Julian, contact Westlake's board chair immediately and prepare acquisition documents for their administrative services division." Daniela's eyes widened. "You're going to buy the hospital?" just the management contracts. Hospitals should be run by healthcare professionals, not financial analysts looking to cut corners. He turned to her. Would you be willing to oversee the transition team? You know the staff, the systems, what works and what doesn't. Me? But I'm not qualified to. You're exactly qualified, Marcus interrupted, echoing the words he'd used months ago. Your understanding of how that hospital actually functions is precisely what's needed. Daniela stared at him, her expression shifting from surprise to something more complex. Why do you do this? Step in whenever I mention a problem? It's not just about the project anymore, is it? The directness of her question caught him off guard. For a moment, the calculating businessman faltered, and Marcus simply answered truthfully. Because you changed everything, he admitted. Before I met you, I built systems that looked perfect on paper but ignored the human cost. You showed me what I couldn't see from my corner office, that real value isn't measured in stock prices or market share, but in dignity, purpose, connection. He gestured to the window overlooking the city. Out there, people like your father and the custodians at Westlake weren't even variables in my equations. Now they're the reason for the equations. Daniela studied him, her expression softening. And is that enough? Rewriting business models to include human variables? Marcus hesitated, understanding her real question. Over the months of working together, their professional relationship had evolved into something neither of them had named. Friendship certainly, but with undercurrents of something deeper that both had carefully avoided acknowledging. It's a start, he finally answered. Learning to see people as more than data points or resources. It changes how you see everything, including yourself. He met her gaze directly, including us. The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken possibilities. I should get back to the hospital, Daniela said softly. Dad's waiting, Marcus nodded. Of course. The car's downstairs whenever you're ready. He paused, then added, I'd like to visit him soon if that's all right. To celebrate the good news, he'd like that. He talks about you all the time, the mysterious benefactor who became family. The word hung in the air, significant and hopeful. As Daniela turned to leave, she stopped at the door. You know, you never told me what you would have answered. What do you mean? That night in the hospital? If I had asked you what you wanted most in the world, what would you have said? Marcus considered the question that had set everything in motion. Back then, probably something meaningless, more success, another acquisition, higher stock prices. He smiled slightly. Now, I'd say the chance to build something that matters, something that lasts beyond quarterly reports and market valuations. And have you found it? Daniela asked. Looking at her, the woman who had inadvertently shown him a different way to measure value and success, Marcus nodded. I'm beginning to. After she left, Marcus returned to the window, watching as Daniela emerged from the building below and stepped into the waiting car. The snow continued to fall, transforming the harsh city landscape into something softer, full of possibility. 6 months ago, a billionaire CEO had asked a hospital custodian what she wanted most in the world, expecting a predictable answer. Instead, her response had begun a transformation neither could have anticipated, not just of a business empire, but of the human connections that gave it meaning. And in that transformation, Marcus Sinclair had discovered that the true measure of wealth wasn't what money could buy, but the value it could create when guided by something greater than profit. The simple recognition of human dignity and the courage to build systems that honored it. As the car pulled away into the snowy evening, Marcus picked up his phone to call Westlake's board chair. There was work to do, important work that couldn't wait. And for the first time in his life, success would be measured not by what he gained but by what he gave.